What is up, guys? Welcome back to another UFC prediction video. This week we got Leon Edwards versus Sean Brady, London card here in the O2 Arena. Looking forward to it. A very good card overall. They tend to make these Paris and London cards pretty solid, but looking forward to breaking it down. We're going to go ahead and get into the first fight. Our first fight on the card, we got Guram versus Fernandes. I'm going to be taking Guram to win a 30-27 decision here. Look, Guram, he's well-rounded. He's got solid Muay Thai, pretty clean hands, and especially in his last time fighting against Jordan Vucenic, looked really good in that fight with his grappling. Seemed to be improved in that aspect of his game. And look, he's taken his losses, versus Elvis Brenner, Ismagulov in a split decision. But, you look at his wins over Gamrot, Jordan Vucenic, those were impressive. He is a high-level guy. And Fernandes, made his UFC debut, beat Muhammad Yahya, but I'm just not taking too much stock into that. Yahya's a super low-level guy, and I think Guram's going to be able to get the job done. Doesn't have a lot of power, so I'm not going to pick him to win by TKO, but give him to me via dominant 30-27 decision. Kind of just a showcase performance for Guram, first fight of the night. Our next fight on the card, we got Loughran versus Nathan Flectcher. Two UK prospects going at it. Loughran, he's a hard-nosed fighter, pretty gritty. In his UFC debut, gave Taylor Lapilus a tough fight, but Taylor Lapilus was able to get the job done via decision, but he still showed a good version of himself. In his next fight versus Pacheco, did a lot better, imposed his will, got a few takedowns, looked good with his boxing, and, just showed a good solid performance that really proved he was UFC level. Last time out, though, at UFC 304, he didn't do very good versus Jake Hadley, and Jake Hadley pretty much boxed him up, was slipping shots. He made Jake Hadley look really impressive in that fight. But really what I noticed in that matchup was the fact that his reach disadvantage with his arms being so short really hurts him in some fights, because Hadley would pop him once, maybe a 1-2 on the outside, and then Loughran would come back with a flurry 3-4 shots, but they would all hit fresh air. He doesn't have great accuracy, and he just couldn't reach the target. And that wasn't a great look, but still, he never gave up on himself. He was still pushing the pace. He has solid cage control and aggression, but it's that reach that really does hinder him a lot of the times. Nathan Flectcher, last time out in his tough finale / UFC debut, looked pretty good, got a submission win there. His grappling is definitely solid. I believe he trains with Paddy Pimblett. Kind of reminds me of Paddy a little bit. Not super solid on the feet, but decently technical. Has the basics down. But I'm going to pick Loughran to get the job done here, because I think he's just tougher. I think he's going to be able to push more of a pace. And Nathan Flectcher, like I said, he has good grappling and submission skills, but I do think that Loughran will be prepared for that. I think he'll be able to nullify a lot of the grappling offensively from Nathan Flectcher. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets takedowns of his own. And I think he's just going to be able to grind out, a hard-nosed Irish decision, just a tough man's fight. So yeah, give me Loughran, 29-28 decision. Our next fight on the card, we have Pulyaev versus Christian Leroy Duncan. Pulyaev, the only fight I've seen of his was when he fought Liam Anderson, I believe the kid's name was, on the Contender Series, and he absolutely schooled him there as a big underdog. But Liam Anderson, really low-level guy, hadn't fought a solid level of competition whatsoever. Pulyaev just kind of put a striking clinic on him. It showcased some decent striking skills, well-rounded striking arsenal, but I just don't think he's going to be able to win a kickboxing match versus Christian Leroy Duncan. Leroy Duncan lost last time out to Gregory Rodriguez, but that's a high-level loss. Got taken down in that fight as well, which did affect his striking. And his loss versus Armen Petrosyan is not aging well whatsoever and isn't a great look. With Pulyaev, kind of a similar style to Armen Petrosyan, but Christian Leroy Duncan, you look at the fight he had versus, what's the guy's name? Fucking stocky Brazilian guy. Claudio Ribeiro? I think it was Claudio something. I can't even remember the guy's name at this point. But Christian Leroy Duncan absolutely took him to striking school. Looked really good in that fight. He's a creative striker. Decently effective. He has natural athleticism. Good kicking game, solid knees and elbows in the clinch. And yeah, he's just a solid fighter, trains with Leon Edwards. I think he's going to be fully prepared to get a comeback win in his hometown now. So yeah, I think he's going to bounce back, try and get a hometown win here against Andre Pulyaev. I'll pick Christian Leroy Duncan via British decision. I think we're going to get a good amount of British decisions on this card. Our next fight on the card, we have Parkin versus Marcin Tybura. He's a great fighter. But yeah, this one's tricky to predict because I think Parkin does have a solid chance to knock out Marcin Tybura on the feet. Marcin Tybura in his last fight versus Jonathan Deniz, who's a really good striker, he had an excellent performance, but he did have some question marks because I believe he actually got knocked down twice in the beginning of the first and the second rounds of those fights. I do believe he got knocked down, but was able to secure a takedown, inflict a lot of damage on the ground with ground and pound elbows, and had a very impressive finish in that fight. Time before that, fought Tai Tuivasa's fat ass, choked him out like the pig he is, and, really showed out. And he's really looked good in those last two performances. But Parkin, he is on the come up, undefeated guy. He was able to beat the likes of Muhammad Usman, the absolute juice monster, who has no technique, but he is a pretty athletic guy. Is a little bit dangerous on the feet. So that's a decent win from Parkin. And then last time out versus Łukasz Brzeski, he was able to get a really good TKO in that fight. But Łukasz Brzeski is nowhere near as tough as Marcin Tybura. He's not able to mix in the grappling as much as Marcin Tybura. And Tybura, he's getting older, but he's crafty. He's got good takedowns. He's pretty durable and tough. He's taken big shots and survived before. Unless you're a Tom Aspinall or Sergey Spivak getting lucky with a reversal and a submission, I don't really think you're going to be able to finish this guy all too easy. The Spivak loss didn't look great, but I'm pretty sure he's the one that initiated the takedown, got the takedown, but then got reversed, choked out. If he gets the takedown here against Parkin, I just don't think Parkin's the type of guy to be able to get up off of bottom position. He's a big, fat heavyweight. These guys just are not able to get off bottom position most of the time, especially like in half guard. Marcin Tybura does good work from there. Give me Marcin Tybura here as a slight underdog to get the job done. I think he'll be able to just, kind of smudge his way to a little veteran decision. And not fraud check Parkin, but, give him a loss in his hometown to really, humble him, set the record straight. I think Parkin's going to be good in the heavyweight division, but I think that Marcin Tybura is just kind of on a roll of beating these guys that he maybe should lose to on paper, but he's a smart fighter, does what he needs to win. He's tough. Give me Marcin Tybura to get the job done. Decision, 29-28. Like I said, a lot of British decisions on this card. Our next fight on the card, we got Loughran Kavanaugh versus Felipe dos Santos. Felipe dos Santos in his UFC debut looked really good versus Manel Cap. I believe he fought Victor Altamirano after that. And, got his hand raised. Didn't look too good in that one. And then last time out, Andre Lima, beat him pretty handily. I think Andre Lima is an excellent prospect in this division. I was talking about that last week. And yeah, that's not a terrible loss to take. So he's only lost to extremely high-level competition in the UFC, being Andre Lima and Manel Cap. And, I can live with the win over Victor Altamirano. Loughran Kavanaugh, undefeated prospect here out of the UK. In his UFC debut last time, he fought an undefeated fighter out of Peru, I believe it was. Got the job done. Had a pretty entertaining striking affair for 3 rounds. This kid is super, super clean on the feet. Really good combinations. Nasty counter shots. He's got good kicking as well. Insanely fast. I know all flyweights are fast, but it really is just, it stands off the page for Loughran Kavanaugh, his speed. And I think that his grappling is also something that we haven't seen tested a lot, but I believe it's going to hold up at a high level. He trains at Manchester Top Team, has some really good training partners around him, and, he has highlight reel knockout potential. You look at his Dana White Contender Series fight versus another undefeated prospect that was very high level as well, out of the MMA lab, absolutely stained him in the first round of that fight. And he's just a super impressive striker, really quick, kickboxing, nasty power in his hands for a flyweight. I think he gets the job done by KO here over Felipe Dos Santos. Dos Santos, he's a guy that, he'll get into barn burner fights. He gets scrappy, kind of like a Charles Oliveira, but that leaves him open for big strikes to the chin. I think that Felipe Dos Santos is going to try to wrestle early. He'll fail. I think he's going to try to kind of marauder his way through Loughran Kavanaugh. I think he runs into a clean counter shot, a nice slip 2-3 from Loughran Kavanaugh, sleeping Felipe Dos Santos out cold. So yeah, give me Kavanaugh by TKO round 2. Round 1 or 2 in this fight. Early KO for Loughran Kavanaugh in this one. Our next fight on the card, we got Jai Herbert versus Chris Padilla. Now, this is an interesting one. Close fight. The odds reflect that right around a pick'em. Slight favorite for Jai Herbert. But I'm going to take Jai Herbert via British decision in this one. Because look, Chris Padilla, in his last fight, he had a very, very impressive finish. Nasty elbow over Rong Zhu. And that's a good win. In his UFC debut, fought a lower level guy in James Lawntop. Was able to get a submission there. That looks good. But Jai Herbert, in terms of the submission threat from Chris Padilla, Chris Padilla didn't shoot any takedowns on Rong Zhu. Lawntop's a lower level guy. I think that Jai Herbert, training, I'm pretty sure he trains out of Team Renegade with Leon Edwards and all of those guys. They tend to have good takedown defense against the cage. Jai Herbert, he's always had good takedown defense for the most part, has good, fence control and the ability to reverse position along the fence. He's got good knees in the clinch as well. So I think that in terms of the grappling, I don't think Chris Padilla is just going to ragdoll him to the ground. I think that Jai Herbert will be able to control most of the fight when it gets to the fence. Chris Padilla, on the feet though, the main reason I'm picking Jai Herbert is because Chris Padilla on the feet, he's not like an aggressive guy that really pushes forward and tries to unleash hand combinations. He's not like that. He's actually very, very stationary, and he uses a very traditional Muay Thai style, which works really good against a guy like Rong Zhu, who is just a super aggressive boxer and leaves himself open for elbows. You can kick his arms pretty easily. That'll work against a Rong Zhu. But Chris Padilla, he comes into this fight with a massive height and reach disadvantage against Jai Herbert. Jai Herbert's super lanky and tall. And I just don't think that Chris Padilla's kind of, relaxed Muay Thai style where, he's landing clean strikes, good kicks. He's trying to counter with some elbows, but he just doesn't have very good hands, moving forward, closing the distance. And he's not going to be able to time elbows over the top against Jai Herbert, who's going to be on the other side of the octagon jabbing his face off. And, his kicks, they're solid, but Jai Herbert, he's got really good kicking as well. And I just think that Jai Herbert's going to be able to land from a distance that Chris Padilla is just not going to be able to close the gap in. Maybe similar to a Chidi Njokuani versus Dos Santos, if you will. I think this fight's going to go kind of like that. Jai Herbert in his last fight versus Rolando Bedoya looked really good in that fight. Solid performance. His accuracy was on point, landing really good straight shots. Was mixing in the kicks, even mixed in some grappling later in that fight. So maybe we see Jai Herbert mix in a crafty takedown. I'll pick Jai Herbert to win this fight via British decision. Like I said, I think that Chris Padilla, he's going to be a fun, entertaining fighter that the fans are going to enjoy watching. I think he will stay in the UFC. I don't think he's going to get cut or anything like that. I think he's a high-level guy, but it's simply his striking style on the feet, being kind of reserved, looking for elbow counters, kind of having a slower paced Muay Thai style. I don't think that's going to work against a guy with a really long reach advantage, a good kicking game, the ability to stay on the outside. I just don't think that style is going to work very good against Jai Herbert, who, is really good at just staying on the outside, kind of like Leon Edwards, sniping, staying safe, just doing enough. And I think that Jai Herbert's just going to do enough to win himself a little decision here. So yeah, give me Jai Herbert. And, he's got solid shot selection as well. You look at the head kick and the knee versus Ilia Topuria. He was making it scrappy in that fight as well. You know, his last loss was to Faraz Ziam. That's not aging poorly whatsoever. That was a pretty competitive fight as well. So yeah, I'll take Jai Herbert to win this one. Much higher level of competition fought as well recently. And I like his money line right around -120 as well. All right, our next fight on the card, we have Nathaniel Wood versus Morgan Charriere. Nathaniel Wood, you know, he's a well-rounded guy. Last time out versus Daniel Pineda, I believe it was. You know, looked solid, got some knockdowns in that fight, landed some really good body shots as well. His kicks were on point, and, you know, he looked well-rounded. You know, he did have his loss to Muhammad Naimov, but Naimov was cheating a lot in that fight. You know, it was in Abu Dhabi. Not a bad performance there from him whatsoever. Morgan Charriere, in his last fight, you know, absolutely just went to town on, I believe it was Gabriel Miranda. Knocked him out pretty easily. Arguably beat, what's his name? Sheppy Mariscal. Sheppy Mariscal. He had a very, very competitive fight with Sheppy, and I honestly thought that Morgan Charriere did enough to win on the cards in that fight, but still, you know, that's a solid look, having a close competitive fight with a guy that's, you know, basically right outside the rankings in this division. Tough fighter as well. You're never going to be able to knock out Sheppy. I think Sheppy has like the real Chito Vera chin. I just don't think that dude's ever going to get knocked out. He's super tough. But yeah, give me Morgan Charriere. I think the main differentiating factor here is going to be the fact that, you know, Wood, he's really clean. He's sharp on the feet with his technicality. But I think that Morgan Charriere, I think he's just a little bit faster. I think he hits a little bit harder, a little more athletic, younger in his career. I think that Morgan Charriere, unless there's a robbery, I think that Morgan Charriere will be able to, you know, craft himself out a nice little striking decision. Maybe getting some timely knockdowns if he's losing, you know, the exchanges. Maybe he gets a knockdown. But, you know, he strikes me as the type of guy to be able to push the pace and look for a finish, or, you know, be able to get a knockdown if he is down on the cards. And yeah, I think he's going to be able to get the job done. Solid prospect here in the 145-pound division. Nathaniel Wood, you know, we kind of know Nathaniel Wood's ceiling at this point. You know, he's been around forever. He's been in the UFC for a long time. And, you know, he's taken his losses. He's beaten some decent levels of competition, but we know his ceiling. We know he's just going to be like a maybe 10 to 15 ranked guy just outside the rankings his whole career. Morgan Charriere, I think he's got a little bit higher of a ceiling, and I see him getting the job done here by decision over Nathaniel Wood. Our next fight on the card, we have Jordan Vucenic versus Chris Duncan. Solid matchup here. Chris Duncan, he's a good fighter. Last time out, got a submission win over Balaji Oki. He's beaten some other guys in the division as well, some lesser known guys. He has taken some losses in his career to Manuel Torres and Slavaklaus Borishev as well. Not terrible losses, but both by finish, one submission, one knockout. Jordan Vucenic in his UFC debut looked absolutely phenomenal against Guram Kutaledze. His hand speed is absolutely off the charts. He has super clean boxing. Knocked down Guram in the first round with a clean right hand. And, you know, his striking is just on point, solid kicking game as well. His grappling and his, you know, decision making on the ground at times could use a little bit of work, but I think that the main reason that he didn't work super hard to get up from the bottom in the third round of the Guram fight was because his corner did tell him that he was up 2 rounds. So he might have thought that he was already winning the fight. I think that's something to take into consideration. I think there's something to that. But, you know, look, I'm going to pick Jordan Vucenic to win this fight via first round knockout. He just strikes me as the type of guy to be super confident, charismatic, and go out to really put on a show here in his home country. Chris Duncan, you know, Scottish fighter, he's solid, but, you know, when you look at the loss via TKO to Borishev, and Borishev was pretty much piecing him up in that fight, he might have gotten a knockdown on Borishev or rocked him in that fight. Landed a clean shot. He does have some power. You know, he's got, you know, good power punches, overhands, big hooks. He did knock out Charlie Campbell on the Contender Series, which is a really good win. But I just don't think that those kind of slow telegraphed punches are going to be able to land on Jordan Vucenic. He has solid boxing overall, doesn't really get hit super clean. You know, his only loss outside of the Guram fight, which he arguably could have won, I mean, that was a razor close fight, was against Paul Hughes back in the day. And he had one loss like way earlier before that, but I don't even really count that. You know, the loss to Paul Hughes. Paul Hughes is a fantastic championship caliber guy. So, you know, that's not a bad loss to take whatsoever. He's looked really good on Cage Warriors. He has gotten submissions of his own as well. So I don't know if Chris Duncan is really going to be able to just out grapple and maybe look for a submission against Jordan Vucenic. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Vucenic will be prepared. I think he's going to be, you know, lighting up Chris Duncan with the hands. And like I was mentioning, when you get knocked out by Borishev, that's not a great look, because Borishev, yeah, he's technical. He's got, you know, some clean shots, but he's not the most powerful guy whatsoever. You know, he gets a lot of his TKOs with body shots, flurries. You know, he just absolutely stained Chris Duncan with one clean left hook. I think if Jordan Vucenic lands a clean shot like Borishev did, Chris Duncan will go out. So give me Jordan Vucenic to win this round 1 or 2 TKO. Early TKO for Jordan Vucenic here. You know, he opened up as a minus 125 on BetOnline. He's closing in at a minus 400 right now, which is crazy. I would have bet him, you know, at the odds of anything under minus 200. I would have loved him at minus 125, but I just can't justify a minus 400, you know, line on that fight. Chris Duncan, maybe he does get the grappling going and he's able to pull something off that way. He does have big shots, big power in his hands. Maybe he's able to get a knockdown, kind of get clutch with it. I think that the value in terms of the betting line is on Chris Duncan, because he's not a bad fighter whatsoever. But I do think Jordan Vucenic wins. Pure pick. Would have loved him at minus 125, but, you know, minus 400 is crazy. Our next fight on the card, we have Gunnar Nelson versus Kevin Holland. Look, what it comes down to is the fact that Kevin Holland is just an absolute lazy, no determination, low fight IQ, complacent, fucking just pathetic fighter ever. He's just so pathetic, dude. Gives up. He has no fight IQ, zero decision making, you know, wouldn't go to the ground with Wonder Boy. Just threw no strikes against Jack Della Maddalena, got bullied by MVP, quit after the slightest sign of adversity against Roman Dolidze, just checked out of that fight. Got ragdolled and embarrassed versus Rainer de Ritter. You know, we remember him getting absolutely choked out and embarrassed versus Khamzat Chimaev. You know, he's got laid on flat and just held down against Brunson, against Marvin Vettori. I think Kevin Holland's an absolute dog shit fighter. I think that he has a terrible attitude. He's one of these guys that you probably have met one of these people, or you know one, that every time they mess up, every time somebody does something better than them, or they don't succeed in what they're doing, I wasn't even trying, bro. What do you mean, bro? I wasn't even trying. You know, you beat your cousin or your friend in a video game, and you're like, hell, how's that, bro? I just beat you. They're going to be like, dude, you're getting all excited. I wasn't even trying. That is literally Kevin Holland, and it's pathetic, dude. I cannot stand his attitude. You know, you look at the Jackson podcast with Rampage Jackson. Rampage, you know, he can be a little stupid sometimes, but, you know, he seems like a nice enough guy. Kevin Holland just acting like a complete cunt to him. And he's just a fucking loser mentality human being. Like, just no determination to win whatsoever. How does this guy have a win over Joaquin Buckley? Like, that is just the worst fucking outcome possible. Because, you know, I like Buckley a lot as a fighter. Buckley is the exact opposite of Kevin Holland. You look at Joaquin Buckley, super determined, never quits, really good cardio, will fight through adversity. You have to put him out to be able to beat him. You know, good example outside of the cage, fights for a purpose, just dog tough. Kevin Holland is the complete opposite. He's a shill of a fighter, throws fights, and he's just a bum. I could go on for so long about how much of a bum Kevin Holland is. I literally hate him. I want him put in jail. I want him cut from the UFC. Cannot stand Kevin Holland's existence. He pisses me off. So I'm taking Gunnar Nelson by sub. Look, Gunnar Nelson, he's been kind of inactive, but look, the fact of the matter is that he was able to sub Brian Barberena. He was able to sub Alan Joban. He's gotten some crafty submissions. He's a good grappler. He's decently technical. Maybe somehow Kevin Holland actually does what he's supposed to and he beats these old grapplers like a Michael Chiesa. I remember when Kevin Holland beat Michael Chiesa, I was thinking, because I was kind of on the fence with that one, I was like, dude, I don't know why I wasn't just obviously picking Kevin Holland. That was an easy pick. He was never going to lose to this old guy that can only grapple. That's exactly what's going to happen here. He's going to lose to the old guy that can really only grapple. Because anybody that can grapple, I think, can beat Kevin Holland. He just doesn't ever fucking try. And this first time that Gunnar Nelson gets him to the mat, I think he's going to be able to submit him. I don't care that Kevin Holland has a fucking looter BJJ black belt. I don't give a fuck. He doesn't try in his fights. He's a quitter. And these British guys that take a long time in between their fights, and they only ever come back for the London cards, a lot of the time, they just are really prepared. They live up to the occasion and they get the job done, and then they disappear for another 3 years, and then they come back for another one at the O2. But yeah, give me Gunnar Nelson to win by submission. He's crafty with his subs. He's decent enough on the feet to where I don't think he gets instantly chinned. And yeah, look, I mean, what I was getting at earlier was the fact that the Michael Chiesa pick actually makes sense in hindsight. So I'm picking Gunnar Nelson because, Kevin Holland, he's just a fucking shill of a fighter, gives up, absolute bum, terrible attitude. Literally want him cut from the UFC after this fight. I cannot fucking stand Kevin Holland. Or who could you give him to? Maybe Bo Nickel. Give him to Bo Nix. Let Bo Nickel fucking elbow his head through the fucking mat. Who else could we give Kevin Holland to? Who's a nasty middleweight on the come up? Give him Mansour Abdul Malik. Let Mansour Abdul Malik absolutely fucking punish this dude and then cut him from the sport. If you guys can't tell, I don't like Kevin Holland. But yeah, get Kevin Holland out of my fucking face. Gunnar Nelson by sub. Please, Gunnar Nelson, send this man to the GFL. Our next fight on the card, we have Jan Blachowicz, big Polish power, versus Carlos Ulberg. I'm taking Jan Blachowicz to win a crafty vet decision. Look, Jan Blachowicz, I just think he's the much better fighter. Look, the only, thing you have to worry about, the elephant in the room of this fight is Jan Blachowicz going to look washed up? Lots of time off. He had an injury. He had to get surgery. So that's always a terrible look. Historically, fighters coming in off a long layoff and an injury tend to lose, and especially when they're an older fighter. But this is the light heavyweight division where, we've seen guys like Glover Teixeira be able to extend their careers, 43, 44, still getting wins. I think Jan Blachowicz might be one of these guys because Jan Blachowicz' style, it doesn't require fast twitch muscle. It doesn't require a lot of energy output. It doesn't require a lot of movement. He's just, stationary, really efficient, really economical, not a lot of wasted movements, accurate with his strikes. He doesn't throw a ton, but when he does, they're hard, they're accurate, they're true. Jan Blachowicz, I'm going to take him to wind back the clock one more time here and beat Carlos Ulberg. Because look, Carlos Ulberg, decent fighter, but he really does rely on his athleticism a lot. Kind of like a knockoff Izzy. Not as good technically whatsoever. He has decent straight shots. He has a nice check hook. His check hook's definitely his best punch. But other than that, you're looking at just a regular city kickboxing guy who isn't really great at checking leg kicks. He doesn't have great kicks of his own. Really tends to do most of the work with his hands. And Jan Blachowicz has just always been an underrated fighter. Look back at his career. Just absolutely brutalized and embarrassed Luke Rockhold, sent him out on a stretcher. You look back at that fight versus Dominic Reyes, just an absolute showcase performance. Body kicked the fucking crap out of him, left a horrible welt on Dominic Reyes' rib cage, knocked him out clean with a left hook, and just dominated that fight as an underdog. You look at his fight versus Izzy. Absolutely schooled Izzy. That fight, literally was not even close. Joe Rogan's commentary was absolutely disgusting, but he absolutely mopped the floor with Izzy, was checking fucking kicks with his big mammoth bone shins, checking kicks, landing clean combinations, timing the big blast double leg takedowns, bullying him against the fence, parrying the left straight or the left jab and just clocking him with a fucking good left hook, good 3-2 down the pipe. And, he was just mogging Izzy in there, man. And if he comes into this fight like he did against Izzy, implements the leg kicks like he did against Ankalaev, and just tries to tear up the legs of Carlos Ulberg, land, good body kicks. Carlos Ulberg, he struggled versus Volkan Oezdemir, and I still think Jan Blachowicz could school Volkan Oezdemir. Man, give me Jan Blachowicz here, and I'm definitely going to be betting on him. He's a plus 240 underdog right now. I'm thinking about pulling the trigger on that number. I'd like him to get, maybe plus 255, plus 260, being greedy, but I think that Jan Blachowicz is going to get the job done here. Crafty vet decision. Maybe just outstrikes him in the first round, drops the second, but then gets a timely takedown in the third. I could just definitely see a performance like that from Jan Blachowicz. He was able to take down Izzy. He was able to take down Alex Pereira. He's got beautiful checking ability. You can't kick this dude. It's hard to hit him clean. He's very good at parrying, blocking, long guard. He was parrying so many of Izzy's shots and just clocking him on the chin. And, Izzy was out there trying to fucking land like, feint, slip, uppercut, question mark, kick off the lead leg. These fucking super flashy combinations and strikes, flying knees and shit. Jan Blachowicz was just in there, jab to the body. Right hand up top. Body kick. Low kick. Body head. Just keeping it simple, keeping it easy, efficient, economical. Jan Blachowicz is just like a fucking Toyota Tacoma if it was a fighter, It doesn't matter how many miles you run it, it's still going to fucking get the job done, dude. I'm picking Jan, man. I'm picking Jan to get the job done. I wouldn't be surprised if he fucking sleeps this kid like Kennedy Nzechukwu did. Kennedy Nzechukwu slept Carlos Ulberg, and Carlos Ulberg's a 3-1 favorite over Jan. And Jan's only ever lost to Magomed Ankalaev, Alex Pereira, which was an arguable robbery. And, a couple knockouts back in the day when he wasn't in his prime. Glover to Charriere via submission. Carlos Ulberg couldn't submit a fucking fly. Come on, dude. I think Jan's getting the job done in this fight, man. And at plus 250, that's like such a disrespectful line. I'm definitely going to be betting Jan Blachowicz here as a massive underdog. And, also something to take into consideration in this fight. Just the character of these two guys. Jan Blachowicz is a family man. When you think about these guys that age and they get worse at the later stage of their career, I think a lot of the times that comes down to the championship lifestyle. They're living lavish, shit's getting sweet, sleeping in silk sheets, as the old saying goes, eating unhealthy foods, drinking, partying, living the championship lifestyle, girls going out to the club. I think this is really what ages these fighters that, get to the championship level. They're famous. Maybe they lose their belt and they go on a decline. Generally, I think it's these outside influences that hinder them in their performances and in their training leading up to their performances, more so than their age. Jan Blachowicz also, he hasn't been TKO'd that many times. He's not a guy that's taken a ton of damage in his career. And Jan Blachowicz, he's not about these distractions and shit like that. He's a family man out in fucking Poland, out in the fucking woods. He goes to the gym, goes home. You just know that Jan Blachowicz is fucking locked in, and he doesn't entertain any bullshit outside of, his family, his gym, his career. He's just a super, professional guy, just based human being. And I think that Carlos Ulberg's getting a little bit too big for his britches. I think that Carlos Ulberg, something about this dude just, I don't know. I don't like him. He strikes me as, he thinks he's a lot better than he is. I could definitely see him just being a dick outside of the octagon. He seems like he's a bit arrogant. He seems like he's the type of guy that, would beat up a newcomer in the gym and then laugh about it after practice or something like that. I could see him, being out at the bar or the club or some some shit and like, trying to chat up a chick. And he's like, Alex Pereira is actually running for me. He does not want to fight me. That's why he's trying to fight Ankalaev. He's trying to fight Khalil. He knows that I'm the one that's going to take his belt. I could so see Carlos Ulberg just being a piece of fucking work outside of the cage. I could see him being a fucking just douchebag. And I could definitely see him, enjoying himself outside of the octagon, drinking, maybe drinking too close to camp. I just don't think that he's as locked in as Jan Blachowicz at all. I don't think he's a better fighter either. The only thing that he has going for him in this matchup is the fact that Jan's old, coming in off the surgery. He's going to be younger. He's going to have a speed advantage. He's going to have the athleticism advantage. But Jan Blachowicz is just... This is geeked versus locked in. Literally, geeked versus locked in. I think that Carlos Ulberg's getting, manhandled and schooled, or he's getting knocked the fuck out. Give me Jan Blachowicz to get the job done in the co-main event. I'll take him by decision for the official pick. All right, we got fucking Leon Rocky Edwards versus Sean Brady in the main event. Sean Brady coming in on semi-short notice. What was it, like a 4-week notice after Jack Della Maddalena had to step in to fight Bilal. Leon Edwards, he's been prepared for this date, and I'm going to trust in Leon Rocky Edwards to get the job done here. I think that Leon Edwards will be able to stop most of the early grappling from Sean Brady. Sean Brady doesn't have the takedown ability of Bilal Muhammad. Bilal is just a lot better at getting the fight to the floor. Sean Brady's really good once it gets there with his submissions. He's very dangerous once the fight gets to the mat. Maybe he does get a takedown or two, but I don't think he's going to be able to finish Leon Edwards. He's always been able to stay pretty safe on the ground. And look, Sean Brady, I think that we're kind of overrating him. I do think he's a good fighter. I'd pick him to beat a guy like Carlos Prates, for example, that I know doesn't have great grappling compared to a Leon Edwards. But I just don't think Sean Brady is as good as we think he is. You look at the Kelvin Gastelum performance, good performance, but that's KG at 170. He's nowhere near his prime. He's washed up at this point. Looks like Pillsbury Doughboy half the time. I don't really take that win all that seriously. And then last time out with Gilbert Burns, look, I had money on Sean Brady in that fight, and I was impressed with the performance, but Gilbert Burns looked like absolute dog shit in that fight. Threw no strikes, was not offering up any adversity whatsoever, and he was just basically a punching bag. And there were still times where Gilbert Burns was able to stop some of the grappling threat from Sean Brady. I think Sean will have a good ability to just push Leon against the fence, but Leon's good at defending takedowns against the fence, against the cage, splitting his base, working for the underhook, spinning out when he gets the chance. I think he'll be able to do that pretty good against Brady, who's not as strong as Bilal Muhammad. Shit, dude. Bilal Muhammad knocked Sean Brady out, and we know that Bilal is not the striker that Leon Edwards is. Leon Edwards, he's much sharper, faster. He has much more tools in the locker to be able to hurt Sean Brady with. I won't be surprised if Leon gets a knockout here. And look, also, I've been meaning to make a video about this, but it's just, I would have to go into so much detail, and I would need to use footage for it to really resonate in people's minds. Leon Edwards arguably beat Bilal. Look, I would score that fight narrowly, 48-47 Bilal, but people were like, Bilal dominated Leon Edwards. Bilal absolutely schooled Leon Edwards. He dunked him on his bald spot. Dude, Leon Edwards, 110%, you can't even make the argument, won round 3 and round 4. Rounds 3 and round 5. Rounds 3 and round 5 in the Bilal Muhammad fight were clearly for Leon Edwards. Clearly. He had the back control in round 3 for the entirety of that round, basically. And then in round 5, he landed good strikes, and he was able to reverse position and cut Bilal badly. Had him in a very bad position in that 5th round. So you got to give Leon the 3rd and the 5th, no matter what. Go back and rewatch that first round versus Bilal. Please do. Because I understand if you want to give it to Bilal. He landed the really nice lead uppercut. He had 2 takedowns, got a couple of elbows off, but Leon Edwards was cracking this dude with nasty body kicks, landing devastating knees to the solar plexus. Listen to the sound of those strikes. Leon had 3 left hands, a couple jabs, 3 really big knees, 4 really big body kicks, couple of low kicks. when you put that up against 2 takedowns with a couple of smudge elbows that really didn't have a lot of impact, and then like one or two jabs, and then a really good lead uppercut that kind of popped Leon's head back. Look, you can make the argument that Leon should have won round 1, and, you know, he's still champion if that's the case. Look, people gloss over the fact that Leon Edwards did really fucking good against Belal Muhammad. You know, he was hitting switches on him throughout the fight, getting Belal Muhammad's back. He was, you know, reversing position on the ground. He really showed that his grappling was solid as fuck against Belal Muhammad. You know, you're not taking Belal Muhammad's back and keeping it the entire third round if you're not a good grappler. Beat Kamaru Usman twice. Beat Colby Covington, who I don't think was as washed up in that fight than he was in his Buckley fight. Did break his foot, which definitely, you know, led to that performance. But I think Leon Rocky Edwards has all the skills necessary to be able to stop the grappling of Sean Brady. And on the feet, it won't be close. You also do have the fact that Leon Edwards, he's going to have the hometown crowd, you know, getting behind him throughout the fight. If you think that doesn't make a difference for the judging, think again, because it definitely does. When Leon lands, you know, a good 1-2, a body kick, expect the crowd to, you know, ole! You know, the British crowd always goes crazy. They're going to be backing their fighter here. I think that's going to help him in a close fight. Maybe swinging the judges to, you know, considering the damage more than the control time from Sean Brady. Damage for Leon Edwards. I think Leon Edwards is going to be able to win this 4 rounds to 1, 49-46. Sean Brady's tough. I don't think he's going to go down. I don't think he's going down without a fight. I don't think Leon Edwards is going to be able to KO him unless it's just something really clean, a head kick, a knee, you know, a perfect left-hand counter that Sean Brady doesn't see. It's got to be a perfect shot for Leon Edwards to get the knockout here, but I'll pick Leon Edwards to win a decision. I think he's fought much higher level of competition with his, you know, Kamaru Usman fights, the Colby Covington fight, his last fight versus Belal Muhammad. I do rate that more than the KG fight. I rate that more than the Gilbert Burns fight. And, you know, Sean Brady got knocked out in the first round versus Belal Muhammad. Like, that's a terrible fucking look. And also, something to take into consideration is Leon Edwards, you know, I do think that the time difference at UFC 304, him being the last on the card, him being from Britain, he had to adjust his sleep schedule. I think that definitely affected his performance and his energy going into that fight. Belal Muhammad, you know, he was able to adjust his sleep schedule better coming from Chicago. Look, I think that Sean Brady, he hasn't been fully prepared for this matchup. He does strike me as the type of guy to always be in the gym and training, staying ready. I do think he's that type of guy. But, you know, maybe his cardio isn't at 100%, which could hinder him. He does exert a lot of energy with his grappling that he goes for. And also, you know, this is an X factor outside of the stylistic matchup, you know, certain techniques, common opponents, stuff like that. Outside of all of that, I think that Leon Edwards really does want his get back. You know, it is going to be in the UK. I don't think he wants to lose another main event in London. And also, Sean Brady just had a baby. Like, I'm pretty sure not that long ago, like a couple months ago, if I'm not mistaken. And I think he kind of has a lot on his plate going on in life behind the scenes. And look, make no mistake, having a child is a fantastic thing. You know, having a wife and a kid is a fantastic thing. But Sean Brady, you know, he trains in Philadelphia. He's not one of these guys that goes to Vegas, goes somewhere else to do his training camp. He's been at home, I'm pretty sure, for the entirety of his preparation. And best believe this motherfucker has been getting up at 1 a.m., 3 a.m., having to change diapers, you know, getting woken up. His sleep schedule's already going to be getting fucked up a little bit from, you know, his child at home. That's going to be a lot of stress on the mind as well. I think that's just an X factor that is definitely something to take into consideration, you know, especially if you're going to be maybe putting money on this fight. I am going to be taking Leon Edwards as a plus 140 underdog here. That's just something I like to take into consideration, these outlying factors that, you know, don't have to do with the stylistic matchup or their careers, but these outside factors, you know, like having a baby at home, fresh out the fucking womb, crying all night and keeping you awake and stressing you out. That fucking makes a big difference in fights, man. So I think that's definitely something that people that are backing Sean Brady need to take into consideration. Sean Brady's path to victory here. Get Leon down quickly, pressure him hard, and get an early submission. I don't see that happening. I think that Leon Edwards, say what you want about him, he never really checks out of fights. Even in that Bilal fight when the going gets tough, he was still, pushing the action, trying to win. Bilal just really showed up that night. You look at the third fight with Kamaru Usman, that was a competitive fight. Leon, was able to grit down, get the job done. And say what you want about the head kick, but, he got the fucking clutch knockout in the 5th round versus Usman. Headshot dead. I think that Leon Edwards is going to be able to get the job done here. The striking won't be comparable. He's going to be lighting up Sean Brady. I think the takedown defense will hold up for the most part. I just don't think Sean Brady's going to be able to push the pace of a Bilal. Leon Edwards, he's much more proven. He's been prepared. He's known about the date for longer. He's fought the same style in his last 4 fights. Sean Brady, he's fought, stubby guys that mix in some grappling. They throw a lot of looping hooks and overhands with KG and Gilbert Burns. That's like the exact opposite of Leon Edwards. Those guys get scrappy. They'll shoot a takedown every now and then. They like to operate in close. Leon Edwards is going to be far away from this motherfucker, sniping him at range, kicking, kneeing him in the body every time he tries to close the distance, doing his fucking split and getting the underhooks and curling off against the cage. I think Leon Edwards gets the job done. I'll take him 49-46. I think he drops the first round, maybe gets put in a bad position, shows his championship level experience, and gets the last 4 in the books. So, yeah, give me Leon Edwards to win on the cards. One scorecard, 48-47, and then the other 2, 49-46. So, yeah, I'm pretty confident in Leon Edwards getting the job done here. My bets for the card, I am going to be taking Leon Edwards at plus 140. I already locked in Gunnar Nelson at minus 130. I'm taking Jai Herbert at minus 125. I do have Loughran Kavanaugh and Guram Kutaledze in a parlay for right around minus 150. And I'm definitely going to take Jan Blachowicz here. Probably going to take him at plus 240. Definitely going to be taking Jan here as well on the money line. So yeah, those are the picks that I like on the card. Those are my full card predictions. If you guys enjoyed the video, leave a like, a comment, subscribe. That means a lot to me. Have a great rest of your day.